It's funny. Sorry, for me, I enjoyed the little getting here behind the scene conversation. And thanks to everyone for your patience. I think now we got everyone in from the level one class into the chat also. So again, today we're going to be going through some origin and evolution stories of dance camps around the Bay Area. So, well, first up, why don't we have, I'm going to pass the baton to Shufina. Tell us a little bit about who you are, but more importantly, the dance camp that you have been running.
Sure. My name's Shufina, and I definitely thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. I see a number of familiar faces. I am the founder of Camp Swing, which I'm very proud to say is California's longest running revival swing camp. We started in 1997. And we've been going strong every year since. And I guess, did you want to hear like how I conceived of the camp, or how it
Sure.
came to be?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's jump into that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, to anyone who doesn't know, Camp Swing takes place up in Mendocino, and it's in a really beautiful facility that was built by the WPA and the CCC back in the 1930s. So it's just perfectly historic as a venue, a place to celebrate our music. And I grew up in the Mendocino area, and I had attended some camps there as a child. So that's how I knew about the facility. And back in 1996, when I started dancing, the big event that everybody went to was down in Catalina, and everybody was going, and I was very excited to go myself. And then I found out that it was the same weekend that my daughter was going to be graduating from preschool. And I was also the president there of that preschool. So I thought, oh, I can't go. So then I just thought, well, I'll just have my own camp. There's nothing happening in Northern California, at the time. At the time, the place where I was dancing, the people I was connecting with were in and around the Highball on Broadway in San Francisco. And it really it happened very organically. I had a connection with the Woodlands, and the Woodlands is the facility, and they are very focused on providing like cultural programming there that is accessible to all kinds of people. And I wrote a proposal, and they said, sure. And at the first few years, I partnered with a cancer organization. I had a friend of mine who had died very young of cancer. And then, as a funny coincidence, which I didn't even realize, her mother was really good friends with Judy Pritchett, so who was Frankie Manning's longtime, partner, and she was living up there at the time. So that was kind of an exciting connection that I didn't really know about, and the desire, at that time was just to get a whole bunch, all my dancing friends in the Bay Area up to this beautiful venue and dance. And the first year were about 30 people, and we had 6 teachers, 1 band, 2 bands, a local band, and Lee Presson and the Nails played, and nobody could believe how fun it was. Nobody could believe how amazing it was. And it just kind of grew from that first year of 30 people to, the camp has just gone through a lot of different, there have been a lot of different people that have been really involved with the camp and have brought their community and their spirit and their history. But we've always been, I would say, even though we're in Mendocino, it's still a Bay Area event, a Bay Area community event, although there's always been there's a handful of people from LA that come up. There's a cluster from Sacramento. But overall, it's really been a celebration of Bay Area swing community in Mendocino. You're all invited.
Yeah, so
interesting side note.
Yeah.
Back in the late 90s when Shufina's camp started, I was actually dancing in the area as well. I was only 17, so I was too young to go to the highball, but my older friends went to the highball. And there was a really big crossover at the time between people who worked at the Renaissance Fair.
That's right.
And people who did swing dancing.
That's
because
right.
It was like really about getting dressed up. At the time, it was historical reenactment, sort of. It was like the same people who loved putting on a Renaissance costume and like playing the part, loved putting on a 1940s or 1950s costume and like playing the part and drinking the drinks. And like Lee Press on the Nails, the band that played that first year, the lead singer and band leader of that band, Lee, was and probably still is actually the guild master for the Criers Guild at the Northern California Renaissance Fair. And now he's actually the guild master for the Sea Dogs at the Dickens Fair. Anyway.
Yeah. And
interesting side note.
Yeah.
When we all stopped dressing up in the early 2000s and like started wearing parachute pants and like sweats and stuff, that was an interesting time in swing dancing. A bunch of the people that were just in it for the style dropped out.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting because in my, at this point, 27 years or something of, dancing regularly, I've actually seen like it was about the clothes and then it was not about the clothes and then it was about the clothes. Like I've seen it be about the clothes probably 4 times and like, and in ways, like there's all really attracted and the sensibility, of the era. At the very beginning, boy, everybody was wearing, if not true vintage, then really good reproduction.
Yeah. I did a lot of shopping for true vintage. And I think part of the reason why we all stopped wearing it back then is because, at least for women, like true vintage dresses, the seams would start to fall apart really quickly because they were old and you were sweating and dancing in them and having to send them, out for dry cleaning every single time because they were all these delicate fabrics. Anyway.
Yeah, I actually had a quick question. So back in that time, 1997, would you say? Oh, so I was gonna ask you, Shufina, would you say a lot of the camp goers back then, that was their first dance camp ever? Would you say was that the case?
No, I mean, the scene was so young, I mean, at the time, like, when I came up with the idea of Camp Swing, I had been dancing regularly for, a full year and a half. So I thought I was really good. And so did all of my friends, because we all had a solid year and a half under our belt. And so by the time Camp Swing came, we all had, 2.5 years under our belt. And so we were just experts. But for sure, there was already, people who were, people were going to Catalina, people were, but yeah, it was the first I mean, there were other swing camps that were happening before Camp Swing. Monsters of Swing was really big. Catalina was big.
I went to that one.
It's just that all of those,
Right. Yeah, most of you have probably never even heard of Monsters of Swing because it ended a really long time ago.
Yeah, but
it was also a very strange event.
It was, and the first, and the gals, the twins, they came to the first 2 Camp Swings and taught.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it was just.
I taught at Camp Swing one year.
I know, that's when I first met you.
Yeah.
I remember, I know. I sort of feel like almost everybody has been to Camp Swing, I think, at this point, but I don't really know for sure, because it's.
Well, if they haven't, they should.
Thank you. Yeah.
By the way, the picture we have on our Facebook event, that is the Camp Swing location.
I saw that. Yeah.
So, but that makes a good segue. So now let me pass it to Amanda. You can tell us a little bit about the dance camp that you have been running.
Yeah. So, hey everybody, in case you don't already know me, I'm Amanda Collins. And I've been dancing for a super long time, as Shufina can attest to, but I actually started swing dancing in the Davis, Sacramento area in 1993, and then went to college down in Santa Barbara, which at the time had like the 3rd largest swing scene in California, which is so not the case now, but it was really great. So while I was down there was when I first started organizing. My dance partner and I in my senior year started a weekly dance, and I got kind of a taste for that. But then after I graduated from college and was trying to like figure out my life, I decided that I was going to do Teach for America, and I got shipped off to Arizona, where I taught in like really hardcore schools for 2 years and worked 80 to 90 hour work weeks and cried every day. And I stopped organizing dance events. All of that is an interesting side story. But so it wasn't until I moved back to California that I started sort of getting into that again. But I was living in Davis up until 2015. And so I was mostly involved with like Midtown Stomp and teaching the Davis Swing Dancers. And I kind of started being an organizer again. Like I was running a chorus girl troupe in Sacramento called the Honeysuckle Roses. And then I got the opportunity to move out here because I got a new job in 2015. And pretty much as soon as I moved, people in the scene who I'd known for a really long time that were looking for somebody to organize with them were like, Amanda, you live here, you should do this. So I got recruited into a few things, and the one that I'm currently still involved with and have been since then is Swinging at the Savoy, which is currently held in the same venue as the Breakaway in Oakland at the Lake Merritt Dance. It has not always been. And I just thought it was a great event. I'd gone every year for many years prior to getting involved in it. And I knew most of the organizers. And I think a lot of people who organize an event, unless they're the person like Shufina who started it, get involved in organizing because they're friends with somebody who is organizing, and they kind of get roped into it that way. And the event itself, when I first started working on it, was being held in the South Bay in a dance studio, which now no longer exists. I have to question myself on that, but I believe that like it got sold and was going to get repurposed into something else. Anyway, so Swinging at the Savoy has existed for a very long time. I think it started maybe 3 years before I got involved in it. So it's been almost 10 years now. Jeez.
Did it used to go by a different name? Was it the
No,
same as like the
so it
Frankie
was always
Manning Weekend?
Yeah, no. So it
if you want, I can
grew
talk about
out
that.
of the Frankie Manning Weekend. Is that so? It's not the same organizers. It's not the same organization.
Yes.
But the Frankie Manning Weekends used to get held every year at Lake Merritt Dance in like the early and mid 2000s. And I also went to all of those, and they were fabulous, and I love them. And it was like literally we would bring Frankie Manning out for a weekend and learn from him. And that was. Go ahead,
Swinging at the Voice, Swinging at the Voice started in Wednesday Night Hop. So Wednesday Night Hop had our classes going on at Cheryl Burke Dance Studio, which is down in the South Bay. And I think it was on one of those meetings that like Pinar and Audrey Hanamoto and Gilles, and who else was on there? Andrea and Gabe. And I had just started organizing with them, doing parties with Lily Sue for them. Jeff and Colleen were still on steering at that time. Anyways, on one of those meetings, oh God, I think I remember this meeting too. It was so long. But Audrey Hanamoto was like, and Audrey and Pinar were like great brainstormers together, and they were just like, why don't we do an event? And we're like, an event? Like an annual like weekend? They're like, yeah, how hard could it be? It was ridiculous, but mostly because of the Frankie Manning visits weren't happening. And so they were like, we should do something with this time that everyone's used to coming out and seeing Frankie Manning. And we should make it a history workshop. And I will be honest, I was a little baby dancer, right? So I was like, why don't we just have Sky and Frida out or something? Like, why do we need to make it a history workshop? This feels really weird. But they were adamant from the very beginning, no, this has to be history. So the very first year we ran like not just Lindy Hop, but we also ran One Step and cakewalk classes and related pre-trad jazz classes. And yeah, and those were all held at Cheryl Burke because it's the largest dance studio we could get. And we already had that conversation with the owners.
And every year from the very beginning, there was always a history element where there was like a talk at lunchtime, one of the days, where there would be videos and sort of like the history of the dance in Harlem in the 1930s, of the revival. And what was the name of the dancer who used to run those? Do you remember? Anyway.
Well, yeah, we had a couple different speakers over the years. We had someone from KFOG, or the jazz station, come and talk jazz music history. We had, that was the first time I saw the Nicholas Brothers clip. You know, Chester. Yeah, Chester
Savoy was the first time I saw a couple of clips.
Yeah. I want to say that at one point, what's his face from Stanford was there. We got him. His name is completely, but you know, the dance historian at Stanford. Yeah. And well, it was nice because we were close to Stanford. So we got, you know, a lot of Stanford dancers who were in the historical social dance sort of scene would come out and join us for this stuff. So like history was a really big part of it. I remember
and it still is.
Yeah. Now which I just like love.
Yeah, we've definitely evolved. And I think that's maybe one of the questions you're going to ask, Sean. Like we do bring in big name instructors now that are not 80 years old or 90 years old. So, you know, like we still bring in VIPs as much as possible. So we were actually the last event that Norma attended before she passed. And we had Chaz every year that we possibly could. You know, we had him hired for the last year, and then like his health just really wasn't up for it. And so we've brought in a variety of other people. We're sort of like always trying to expand our definition of who constitutes a VIP, like who in the scene either was part of the first wave of Lindy Hop or even the second wave, you know, in the a little bit later on. Like Norma kind of spanned both. Chaz was definitely the second, but you know, Barbara Billups and Sugar Sullivan, and we've had Sunny Allen. We've had a bunch of people come in to sort of provide that ongoing sense of history. And the way that we offer classes has changed. And we definitely do a lot more now of like, we're just a Lindy Hop weekend as well, where you can come and learn Lindy Hop from really high quality instructors. And that's actually my role in the organization. So I'm the person who, having danced Lindy Hop for 27 years now, I know a lot of people. And so it's actually really helpful to have somebody in the instructor liaison role who knows the instructors and can get in contact with them more easily than just somebody who's like followed their page on Facebook. So I feel like that's like the main reason why I'm useful to the event, is just that I know a lot of people.
That's not the only reason.
But so it sounds like in the beginning, for Swing That Savoy, at least I guess, that it was a smaller camp then. There weren't as many teachers, and mainly the teachers were the you know, who now we refer to as the VIPs. But as the camp grew, there were more students. We couldn't fit, you know, 100 people in the class. So then the teacher roster also expanded.
Yeah, I think the first year was mostly Wednesday night hop teachers plus like one spotlighted couple, you know, and then like we expanded to like 2 spotlighted couples, and then like 3, and now like there's a whole roster, right? Yeah. But all the other classes would be taught by the Wednesday night hop faculty. And
it was a pretty big camp even back then. Like there were a lot of attendees, and there were various different classes being offered in different rooms at Cheryl Burke,
But we got burned out real quick. Running a weekly event and an annual event is hard. It's 2 very different mindsets. And personally, I don't enjoy it. So I'm really grateful to Amanda and Hannah and everyone on the set, and Gilles who continues to do it. You know, like that. have the ability to look towards a huge event, see all the pieces and the timeline in which those pieces need to fall into place, because it is an ever evolving thing, and it just ramps up. It exponentially becomes more crowded the closer you get to it. Like I'm good with the weekly
started
event.
having
I do a little
meetings
every week.
Yeah, we started having meetings for the 2021 event in 2019. Yeah. So, I mean, like we're basically, as soon as one year's event ends, we're already planning for the next one. And when it comes to hiring national and international instructors, we're actually contacting them before the previous year's event, because we've had some cases where we contacted them in like May, which is only a couple months after our event happened. And they were like, oh, sorry, I'm booked next February already. We were like, okay. So next time I'll contact you in December of the year before. And so that's what I do. I contact them as soon as I possibly can, like a year and a half in advance. And half of the instructors are like, this is really early. I don't know if I can actually say for sure that I can make it, but I'm penciling you in on my calendar. But that actually works. If you're ever considering running an event and you want to get really high level, very sought after instructors. And of course, with coronavirus, all of this is going to change or has changed, right? Like right now, if you wanted to book an international level instructor to come to your Zoom class, they'd probably be like, yes, 3 weeks in advance. Maybe not, but you know, like they're all out of work. If you're going to offer to pay them right now, they'd be like jumping at the opportunity. But in normal times, when there's a gazillion events all over the world, they get booked really far in advance.
Dibs means something in the Lindy Hop world.
So in fact, Shufina, so I was going to jump back to Shufina about kind of talking about the evolution of the dance camp for Camp Swing. So you know, as you were saying, when you first had it back in 1997, it was a small camp.
Yeah, kind of as Amanda was saying, you know, early on, there was a lot of cross-pollination between the Renaissance Fair people and the swing people. I mean, basically it was people who liked to dress up and liked to party and liked to dance, you know, that was what we all had in common. And so the first year we hired Lee Presson because they just had a big following, you know, like there were just people who would go all the way up to the woods or just go, you know, go wherever. And so I guess I would say that did kind of give us a legacy at the beginning of, you know, being super supportive of live music. I mean, Lee Presson, I think, you know, there were like 12 people in that band or something, you know, that was a big one to swing, but, you know, very, very, very focused on always having live music. You know, people, you know, it's true. While you're in this beautiful environment, and you know, you're not going to be driving. Everybody's, you know, once you're there, you're there, and people have really broken down some barriers and really let loose. Created just a real cohesion. And so very early on, I mean, the first year I couldn't even, you know, think it through, but, you know, very early on, it was like, there are no contests here. We have this, what we call a variety show, but nobody gets up there and does a swing routine. Or if they do a swing routine, you better be like juggling machetes and fire while you're at it, because, you know, everybody is seen, you know, so the variety show kind of becomes a little edgier. And then there's just been, I think, a real camaraderie. And I think, you know, two things that Camp Swing invented that I have seen go on to other camps. The first one, people from Texas might not like it, but we were the first swing camp to do the rueda. And, you know, lots of people were doing the rueda. Well, I mean, the Latinos were doing the rueda, which is how I knew it. And that's what I was doing. And then I was like, let's do a Lindy rueda thing. And then
maybe you can explain briefly to folks who are not familiar with
rueda it's a Cuban salsa dance. It's basically square dancing, except you're in a wheel and there's a partner who calls, and the partners kind of move around, and rueda means wheel in Spanish. And so there's a couple now in Texas who, you know, had the same idea, and they've got a Wikipedia page now, but they took the Lindy Hop, you know, and really incorporated it with the rueda. So you're passing partners. If you've ever done square dance, that's what the rueda is, except that it's in a circle, but you're passing partners and there's a call. And so we kind of, you know, came up with that. It was Camp Swing #2. It was actually my idea, but, you know, then we sort of did, you know, the teachers came up with a way to do it. And that was like a really fun thing, because nobody had done that here or there or anywhere at that point. This idea of, we're doing the Lindy Hop, but we're changing partners and we're passing partners, and it's organized. And so that really is, I think, kind of emblematic of you know, what kind of the teamwork and the games and stuff that we like to play. And then the other thing that we do is, it's called the Lindy RX. And there's always at Camp Swing, there's this one area where all of the teachers, whoever teaches at Camp Swing, they all go and sit in the clinic and, you know, give a little advice. And so it's basically like a drop-in clinic. And we started that the second year. I said, people can't leave Camp Swing without knowing how to do a swing out. And if you can't figure it out, go to the clinic and a teacher will teach you, and then come back. And then that has just continued to go on. And, you know, at the camp, it's just, you know, the band usually comes, and you know, the band's there the whole weekend. The teachers are there. There's no private parties. There's no, you know, special, like, you know, the teachers are over there and here's the VIP room and here's the after hour party. I mean, it's like anybody's welcome to have a party, but everybody's invited. And we do have this, you know, these groups, like there's a couple that every year now they have this vintage pajama party. You get like 40 people, COVID, you know, in this tiny little cabin. And it's just, people, you know, decorate their cabins and everybody's invited to come through. So it's really, really, you know, it's about loving the environment, honoring the history, taking dance classes, dancing all night, and just, you know, sharing, you know, people just bring, you know, it's kind of like, food and everything is provided, but there's always people who bring their special Sonoma pies or their hooch or their special thing. And so it's really, I guess I would say, a very giving and sharing community. And
I saw Mary ask a question.
Sure.
I'm assuming this is referring to Camp Swing, but she asked if Frankie ever went to Camp Swing.
Frankie never came. The first couple of years, or actually the first quite a few years, he was always on he used to do this Caribbean jazz cruise in October, and that was always a conflict. And then Judy was usually with him, but then there were a couple of years where Judy was around, and so she came. And Frankie used to go to Mendocino and do like a little workshop up there. That some people from the Bay Area would go up to. So that's how I met him first, was up there. But no, it was interesting because I had a long talk with Judy about, like, wouldn't it be amazing if Frankie was here? And she said, yes, it would be. But it's kind of like our format is really not about having like a star teacher. It's hard to explain. But I just had the, you know, like, and Frankie, you know, he had his program, right? I mean, it was like, he comes for a weekend, here's his fee, this is what he does, you know, and everybody should experience it. But our camp was a little bit, I guess, not quite structured to support like a star teacher with, you know, like a lower tier. I think the thinking was everybody would just go to that one class and then everybody would be in the one big room with the one teacher, you know. I don't know. It's just a different.
No, we run into that.
Yeah.
Back when we had, you know, Chaz and Norma, like anytime they would teach, all of our other classes that were happening at the same time would just be really underpopulated, and there'd be like 100 people in the room with them.
Right.
So.
Yeah. The only way you can, the only way you can kind of work around that, I think, because I mean, you know, to be fair, I know that some of the, you know, with my staff, there's certain teachers that are going to be more sought after or less. And so sometimes you can work around that, I think, by, you know, having the star teacher teach way more beginner classes. And then the people who think that they're too good, they're like, well, you know.
I think one thing that's interesting you mentioned, Shufina, that was about how you folks used to have contests, but you know, kind of eventually you moved away from.
We never had contests.
Oh, never had contests.
We did, but we moved away from them.
Right. Because I do know that I feel like in terms of like the different dance events, you know, there's definitely competition is a core part of the history of the dance. You know, but at the same time, for the dance camp to feel a different need. So Amanda, I remember the discussion around SATs where we used to have competition, then we kind of turned them into fun and silly competition, and then eventually we'll just also just remove. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about kind of the what went behind the scene.
I feel like at least back when I first started attending camps, there were really kind of 3 distinct type of weekend events that were going on. There were exchanges where there were no teachers. It was really just, initially it was literally about one city's scene visiting another city's scene, and just having a whole bunch of dance parties over the course of a weekend where everybody got to dance together. And in general, everybody got housed by local dancers. So it was also like a way to get to know people in the local scene. San Francisco had a swing scene. I think Swing Exchange. Chicago had the very first one. So that was like the no teacher event where it was just about getting together socially and dancing. And then there were instructional weekend events. And I would say SATS fits that mold, where you weren't going to compete. And there were social dances at the end of your day of instruction. And there are still a lot of these camps out there, but the main focus of the camp was learning more about the dance. In the case of Swing at the Savoy, also learning more about the history, but like learning, right? Going there to learn. And then you go to the social dances to like enjoy being with other people and listen to good music and maybe kind of implement what you learned with new people that you wouldn't necessarily get to dance with just in your local scene. And then there have always been, or not always, but like there have long been events like what used to be the American Lindy Hop Championships and the International Lindy Hop Championships. Now there's like a whole bunch more of these, the Ultimate Lindy Hop Showdown, that were mostly about competition and still are. If you go to ILHC, hardly anybody social dances at night. I mean, like people do, there's tons of people who attend the event, but like the people who are hardcore competitors who are competing in like 5 or 6 different divisions, they aren't out social dancing because they're saving their energy for the competition, or they're practicing with their partner in some other room. Like those events are about the competition. You go there because you want to compete or because you want to watch people compete live. So trying to integrate the two into one event is tricky. Like for SATs, because we were primarily an instructional event, like we would always do our competitions at our late night when all of our classes were over and our regular night dance was over, because we had a live band at our regular night dance. And we didn't want to take away time from the live band to run a competition, because it takes a lot of time. And then you're paying a live band and then they're not getting a chance to play and people aren't getting a chance to dance to them. So we would run them during late night where we were just having DJ'd music. But it would be like this massive loss of momentum. So like a bunch of people would go to the regular dance and a bunch of those people would continue on and go to the late night, and they'd have a great time dancing to DJ'd music for like the first hour, and then the competition would happen. And by the time the competition was over, everybody who had competed was exhausted from having competed, and everybody who just sat on their asses for half an hour, pardon my French, watching the competition, it was now like 2:00 in the morning and they were exhausted, and then everybody left. Like literally every time we would have the competitions, and then by the time they were over, late night was done. even if we had scheduled another hour, there were like maybe 20 people who hung out and kept dancing just because they were super hardcore. But so that didn't work for us. Like, we wanted people to be able to just stay and keep dancing and keep their energy up. And we found that the better way to do that was ultimately to not have competitions. Also, they're a lot of energy to run. Like, you have to solicit prizes, and you have to, you know, just organizing who's going to compete when and who they're competing with, and getting judges and doing scoring and like doing, just giving out the, like, everything is a lot of organization. Yeah. And when Carrie Westbrook lived in the Bay Area and was part of our team and was willing to do that, we were like, sure, let's have competitions. Short ones, very short, very fun ones. But once she left and moved to Georgia, sad face, none of us, the rest of us that were on the team, were really willing to do it. It's a big investment. If any of you have ever organized competitions of any sort, you'll know organizing competitions is a lot of work. And we were already doing a lot of work, you know, all day long, organizing the regular event. So
yeah, that was, I mean, you know, when Camp Swing first started, it was sort of like, of course there's going to, you know, every swing event had competitions. That was like part of the model. And honestly, the first year it was just sort of like, there is just too much. Like, I've somehow got to like feed and lodge, you know, it was only 30 people, but still it was, you know, a huge undertaking, you know, in its way. And then people were like, wow, it sure was nice to hang out and talk to people. And then, yeah, I mean, competitions can be so exciting, but yeah, they can go on and on. And yeah, if you're not into competing, I think if you're just a viewer, once you've seen a few competitions, you've kind of seen them all, you know, in a certain way. And,
right.
You know, but now, you know, certain events just really, really, really do it well. And
right.
Yeah.
Like, if you haven't been to ILHC, I highly recommend that. Like, if you're even just to be a spectator, like getting to see that level of competition in person is mind blowing. Yeah. So great. And, you know, there's lots of great people to dance with, but you can also just watch the live stream. So there's that too.
But it came up, you know, like over the years, in the early years, you know, I'd get messages from people. They'd be like, oh, you know, you could really grow the camp. You need competitions, you know, and then I just kept pushing it away. And I'm really glad we never did, because it's just not what we're about. We have a cabin decorating competition. You know? That's what we do. We have cocktail competition, you know, but there's no.
If I can see how there's a difference with there's the competition focus on encouraging folks to take another level up in their dancing skills, really dig deep into that, our dance form. And then there's one that's about building kind of friendship and camaraderie among the camp goers, meeting locals and exchange.
And for us, we kind of decided too that it was kind of in terms of how we wanted to promote people in our local scene and elsewhere to like up their game, that like we could also offer the ability to, or the availability of like slots during our main dance and during our late night dance for local groups who wanted to perform, to do that. Because a performance, people can sit down, it's 5 minutes, then it's over and they go back to dancing. It's not quite the time suck that competitions are with all the judging and the awards and all of that. And we've been able to offer a lot of like local groups and performers the ability to come and have a bigger stage with a lot of people watching, which, you know, is a great way to build your dancing up as well. I know Lori's done a bunch of our performances, because every year Chester Whitmore does some crazy routine that he teaches. And if you take his class, you have the option to then perform said completely crazy routine on Sunday night, which is always fun and kind of nerve-wracking.
I also saw Lori made a shout out to the food catering at Camp Swing.
Oh yeah.
She said hands down some of the better food that she had.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Cool. So the last question.
I guess I will say.
Yeah. Go ahead, Shufina.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think one of the things that we, besides like really focusing on inclusivity and other, I kind of even more camper driven events and things, we have over the past few years, a lot of campers have just started kind of throwing ideas at us and creating things. So now we have, I don't know, we have people who sing sea shanties, in the middle of the night, and a group that loves to make waffles for the whole camp in the morning, and this pajama party. And, last year we had somebody, like, we had a crafts table, and, it's just kind of, we're really starting, I guess we're moving in a certain way of just looking for more, even more inclusion in that way, and more camper driven kinds of things. And it'll always be live music, it'll always be about swing dancing, but just figuring out other ways. Last year we did some hikes, which people really liked. We had a naturalist who took us on guided nature hikes, and that was a huge hit. So trying to keep it fresh in its way. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cool. So one thing I wanted to talk about too for this chat is like we went through a lot of fun, exciting stories, talking about the growth and different interesting development that's happened. But I do feel that the dance camps being one is it's a place where we're educating the new crop of dancers, but two, it's also a place where large people from the community come together. So I had asked the panelists ahead of time about, if they had some experience or some kind of learning lessons or something difficult that came up where they had to kind of figure out how to handle, as they were running the camp. And I know Minda kind of talked about, has a particular story she wanted to share, and I felt it was fitting to bring that up, especially in context of kind of what we're talking about in the society and in the dancing today.
Yeah. So I mentioned that Norma Miller, who is, one of the original Whitey's Lindy Hoppers, came to our event every year up until the year that she passed. And if you have never had the opportunity to interact one-on-one, or even in a very small group with Norma, you might not know, although you can kind of get this from her public persona, that she does not really give any fucks at all about like other people's opinions of her. And she will say whatever's on her mind, which can be difficult sometimes. And one year in particular, as Lori mentioned, from the very beginning, our event has said that we are about the history of the dance. And we've always been very conscientious, at least I think, about, being very clear that it started in the African-American community and the history of the dance in Harlem and with the Savoy Ballroom and the original Whitey's Lindy Hoppers. And we have, as much as possible, tried to hire them and bring them to our event and have people learn from them and meet them and hear their stories. And it's really difficult to it has proven to be difficult to bring the Black community into Lindy Hop in a large scale. And we were having our end of the event, like dinner celebration with all of the teachers a few years back. And we were doing appreciations, like, I appreciate you for blah, 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 what you did this weekend. And then that person would choose somebody else and say, I appreciate you. And it got to Norma, and she stood up and just kind of laid it out for us. Like, you guys say that you're all about, the history of the dance and promoting the culture. You're holding this event in Oakland. You call it Swinging at the Savoy, but I don't see any Black people here. And you're obviously not doing a good enough job of reaching out to them. And you're hypocrites and you should do better. And it was very difficult for us to hear because it was true. And we immediately, like, you know, we had our little moment of like white fragility where we cried about it and like got upset. And then we got together and we're like, well, okay, well, what can we do? Like, what are some ideas? And we started brainstorming. And I can say that in the years since then, although we had hired Black instructors before that, we have gone out of our way to make sure that we're hiring more Black instructors. We have hired, you know, made sure that like our bands include, you know, Black band members as well, that we're not just hiring a bunch of white people. Like, one of the ways that we can sort of put our money literally where our mouth is by paying people of color to be part of our event, which we've gone out of our way to do. But another, you know, really good point that she had is that like we were in a largely majority African-American community doing this event, and we didn't have Black people at our dance. So we've been working since then on ways that we can reach out to the Black community. I think one of the primary ways that we've tried to do it is by looking for people in the Black community who already dance, like reaching out to other dance styles and trying to like make sure our flyers go to their studios or their places where they dance and say, look, hey, like we do this thing, we'd love to have you there. We offer a super beginner track that is discounted. We've offered discount codes. We've put up flyers and like contacted local Black churches and community organizations. We've hooked our VIPs up with opportunities to speak to local Black youth through different various organizations. And yet the problem persists. And I don't know that there's an easy fix for it. I definitely know that like people of color have traditionally not had a really big voice. And traditionally, I mean like since the 90s in organizing events. And I know that they've been a pretty small percentage of people who are into this dance. And I don't know if that's because we're sort of doing reenactment and like the Black community has kind of moved on or what it is, but that's sort of where we are. And yet, like when we look really hard at our organization, all of our organizers are white or Asian. We've brought in lots of other people, but like the entire group of people that makes decisions about our event doesn't include any people of color. So, you know, it's hard to not like tokenize somebody and be like, hey, will you be part of our organizing team because you're Black or because you're Latino or because you're, you know, just like non-white. Yeah, like, you know, I'm just gonna be super honest here. Like we bring in Manu as much as we possibly can to moderate panels or to teach a class. And he's one of our better known Black dancers in the Bay Area scene, you know, so he's like an easy person to be like, hey, could you be part of our event? He also knows a lot of our VIPs and he has for a really long time. And he's kind of burnt out on being part of organizing things, right? Like he's gotten asked by too many people to like be the token Black guy at their event. So it's hard. Like it's something that we're still working on. And especially in the context of everything that's going on right now. It's a little weird even to just like be a white lady organizer, you know, in a panel of white organizers talking about race in Lindy Hop.
Yeah. Yeah, and Shufina, you also mentioned that for Camp Swing, maybe it's for the kind of the inclusivity nature, but you folks had also.
Yeah, I mean, I can just, you know, just to kind of add on a little bit. I mean, as long as I have been in the swing scene, there has been a discussion, you know, how come there's not enough Black folk here? It's their music and, you know, and what do we do, you know, and it's just been some, you know, this is not a new discussion at all. I mean, since the very beginning, and I'll you know, I had an experience at Swing number 2. I was organizing that, and there was this guy who had come to Camp Swing number 1. He doesn't live here anymore, but he was an African-American guy, and and we were pretty good friends. And then he said, you know, Shufina, you know, you got to get some black kids there, you know. And I said, yeah, you're right. He said, he said, I'll pay for 10 kids. I will cover them. And I said, okay. And so then I reached out to the Omega Boys Club, which is this, you know, over here on Potrero Hill. And the founder is this like very famous man. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, I run this camp up in the woods. Yeah, you know, somebody's going to pay 10 of your kids, you know, guys. It's kind of a little bit of a reform school or something. And he was sort of like, the guy was like, and you are who? And you want to take 10 of these, my kids from, you know, Potrero Hill up to Mendocino? And I was like, yeah, they're going to pay, you know, whatever. And then the guy was just sort of like, you know, and this man's a very big deal. He's very well known in the city. And he was just like, lady, you're crazy. And basically he said, you know, who's going to watch them? Like, who's going to, you know, and then as I started to think through, I was like, yeah, you know, it's true. Like, I don't have the capacity to have 10, you know, 15-year-old boys, you know, under my, you know, control. And then I also started feeling like, and then they're going to come up here and we're going to be in the woods and, you know, who's in charge? And oh my God. And it was just too overwhelming. And then I went back to, and then the man who I had been talking to, the director of the Boys Club, he was like, yeah, you know, thank you for your thoughtfulness, lady, but I don't think this is a good idea, you know, until you can tell me, you know, what this whole thing is really about. And so that was my big outreach at Camp Swing #2, which, you know, was a failure, but, you know, I just bring that up just to say that, yeah, these are things that people have been thinking about and talking about, and, you know, how do you incorporate and how do you reach out? And, you know, in my case, there was somebody who was willing to pay full price for 10 people, 10 kids to go, you know. I don't know what the answer is. I think my job right now is to listen, but, you know, I just brought that up just to sort of share that it's not a new concern. It's just, it's a deeper issue that people are looking at more. And I've often, you know, I do a lot of salsa dancing, and it's just so strange to me that salsa dancing is so diverse, and I kind of, you know, in a certain way crave it a little bit, because, you know, in a salsa club, it's young and old, and it's, you know, every color of the rainbow in there, but for sure. And it's not just Caribbean, Black, Spanish speaking people who are there. There's all kinds of African Americans who don't speak a word of Spanish, who are just very, very comfortable in that scene. And so why it happens in salsa and not swing, I think in some ways it might be what, you know, I can only speculate, but like what Amanda said about, you know, we're, you know, Lindy Hop, we're in this like little, you know, historic reenactment kind of thing. And that's not interesting for people, maybe for people who just want to be always pushing the edge and learning something new and different. So that's a theory that I have that's, you know, I don't know. But I don't know. I will say, talking about diversity, Camp Swing was also the first camp that was very, very open and, you know, really made direct outreach to the gay and lesbian community. And in fact, there were, you know, I would say Camp Swing 4 through 10 or something. I think people thought we were a gay camp, and it's like, no, we're just a dance camp. But, you know, it was by, you know, we had majority gay and lesbian for quite a few years. They're the ones who taught us how to decorate our cabins. To be honest, you bring it all up, decorate, like, wow, you know.
Was there any difficulty from having that reputation at the camp while you're operating?
I think that there were some people who were turned off, who had the idea that Camp Swing had become a gay camp, and that, you know, that maybe it wasn't a camp for them. And then, you know, and I never really paid any attention to that, because you know, I was like, whoever's giving me money and is fun and wants to dance, that's, you know, welcome to but I did have an experience. There was one year I remember where this couple came, and I don't know where they were from. I don't think from the Bay Area, maybe the Central Valley or something, but they showed up and they were really in their little like super, you know, kind of square looking sort of dorky swingwear and all ready to go to their swing camp. And I think they, you know, there's a lot of swingy, you know, so many swing events just happen in church basements and stuff. And so I think that's what they thought they were going to do, was be at some church thing, and they got to Camp Swing and all my colorful gay people running around, cocktails, you know, lessons here and there. And this couple, they just came up to me and they said, "We don't like it here." And I said, "Why?" They said, "You know, it's just not what we thought." And it's not a, or is this a swing camp? And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, we're not comfortable. We don't feel comfortable here. We don't like the people." And I said, "Here's your money. Bye." I mean, you know, I don't want. And I think it's funny to think about it now that, like, when we first started, there was a strong gay group. Like, you know, basically we latched in with the queer swing group and, you know, became really good friends with them and started going to their events and passing out flyers. But there were, yeah, for a couple of years, there was this very strong weekly queer swing, or swing out it was called, that Kristen Long, who's our web developers, you know, she was she managed that. And so but now it's all changed. It's like we don't have gay swing events and swing events. We just have swing events, and everybody likes to lead and follow.
Right, I was going to say, now we have a MB dance camp weekend. I see Sam in the house. So I mean, it kind of went from a minority, I guess, now to a just part of the culture.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it seems like once dancers, you know, get to a certain level, gay or straight, they all learn, everybody wants to lead and follow, you know, most people, not most, but a lot of people. So it does become much more of just a different thing. And, you know, I mean, Camp Swing has had like a lot of different, you know, there's a group of people who've been there like almost every year. And then there've been different crowds that have come in and really left their legacy, you know, on the camp and made their imprint, you know, given us gifts. Sarah Levine came up with a beautiful song that we all sing now, our camp song. And there's different games that have been invented by campers and just all these different things. And they've all just left their imprint. But yeah, the gay, I mean, I miss it when we were kind of a gay camp, actually. I mean, there was a lot of style. That's all I can say. It was a very, very stylish camp. Stylish houses, stylish outfits, fantastic variety show. I mean, it was really beautiful.
I can see what the variety show.
Oh God, yeah, these dancing cowboys and yeah, it was just, I have some beautiful, beautiful memories and just really thankful for that. And I don't know, you know, maybe they all went off and had kids. I don't know, you know, but yeah, I have a very small, you know, I can't even say I have a gay contingent anymore. I wish I did.
So right now we're about a little past 9. I was thinking maybe if you folks, you know, if you have a last thought, something looking ahead, or something you would like to let, you know, folks who are not camp organizers to know about. Maybe you have one closing thought.
Yeah, I'll just say most of us who started organizing started when we were still baby dancers, relatively speaking. Like, in retrospect, we can look back and be like, man, I was a baby dancer when I started organizing. And lots of people will look down on that and be like, you can't run an event, or you can't teach classes, or you can't do a weekly whatever venue because you've only been dancing for a year and you don't know what you're doing. And I would say, like, we all did that. Like, the people who are currently looking down on that did that. We're just better now, and now we can look back, and hindsight is 2020, and be like, yeah, we kind of sucked back then. And like, that shouldn't stop you from trying to spread the love of the dance to other people if that's something that you're interested in. It is a lot of work, and if it's something that you really love, it's totally worthwhile. And then my last parting thought is, and everything is going to look different for quite a while, for a couple of years, because of coronavirus. So there's a lot of discussion going on right now about what Lindy Hop will look like going forward, like what organized events will look like going forward. Will we even have weekend events where we bring a whole bunch of people to one place and have them all dance with each other? It's probably not going to happen, at least until we have a vaccine or a really effective treatment for coronavirus. So but you know, I feel like we all need to be brainstorming ways that we can keep the love of the dance alive. And I just want to say thank you to the Breakaway for continuing to do weekly classes and for providing online content like this, where people get to engage in discussion around Lindy Hop and like connect with each other, see each other's faces, and like give thumbs up and wave. So thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I would also, I sat in on your meeting last, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, and I was a little bit struck because some of the, that was the old school or the OG, you know, dancers or whatever. And they were all, I mean, I know I was just reminiscing about when all the gay people used to come and decorate their cabins so beautifully, but there was kind of some reminiscing about how, oh, the scene, you know, used to be so much, you know, more welcoming, all, you know, everybody just wanted to get good, you know, and I don't know how to say this, but I sort of felt, I sort of had the sense that, gosh, you know, you sound like a, you know, get off my grass lawn, kids, kind of thing. Because I really feel like, you know, running Camp Swing all these years, like I said, I've seen so many amazing people come through. I've seen so many beginner dancers, like that Camp Swing was their first event and now they're teachers. And, you know, Jason Christodoulou took his very first, like he had taken one dance lesson. They came to Camp Swing and got, you know, so amazed. And then he, you know, had this fantastic career. And Kevin St. Laurent, I mean, I think at Camp Swing was his first like camp that he taught at. And, you know, so I've just like seen so many people come in as beginner people and then take off and become fantastic dancers or contributors or organizers. And I just really I can't follow that, you know, oh, it used to be so much better in the old days because we were so much more focused, or, you know, we were friendlier or nicer, or dressed better. Like there's just, you know, people keep coming through Camp Swing and making it an amazing camp and helping create a legacy. And I just really think that I appreciate that. I appreciate Breakaway, including me here. And, you know, I'm still not sure what I'm going to do about Camp Swing this year. You know, it might end up just being, I haven't canceled it yet. It might be Camp COVID Swing, where it's extreme social distancing and no dancing, but, you know, we're all up in this incredible location and we take hikes and figure out how to, you know, maybe watch movies in the rec hall or something. I don't know. I'm still, I can't let it go because it's just become such a big, important thing for me over the years. So, you know, but thank you, Breakaway, for being so inclusive and keeping it going and inviting me to join too.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming out. And also, I mean, it's about time. We're happy to just hang out and chat and whatnot, but also, I personally have this fear that once it's like safe to dance, we will lose half the dance community to new quarantine hobbies like baking or cooking. I definitely cook and eat my wife's baking a lot more than ever in my life. nothing wrong with that, you know, but I do feel like dance has been, at least for me, a really way to see how people come together, really kind of has the ability to bring people across culture outside of our social circles, you know, and I love to see this still continue, you know, through these weekly venues, through the dance camps, through the classes and everything in between. So yeah, I'm glad that you folks are coming out and, you know, kind of keep each other engaged. And then also, you know, so thanks Amanda and Shufina for talking about some of the more current event, so to speak. I know, you know, everyone's kind of comfort level is a little different and everyone's motivation is different, but I do feel that it's important to acknowledge that. It's like, yeah, like this room right now, everybody's Asian and white, you know, it's a historical Black dance to a historically African-American music. But I mean, this is kind of what we got. And I'm also glad that we're able to just be real about it. Like it is a thing, you know, it's not running away. And so I thank everybody for just coming out and sharing a moment.
Thank you so much.
Let's give a round of applause for Amanda and Shufina, and also Lori chiming in. Yeah, folks, that's really all I got for tonight.